Welcome to episode 79 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories their way and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50 and your host for today's show. Today I'm interviewing a woman from Charleston, South Carolina who has found an easy and effective way for people over 50 to remain fit, flexible, and feel fantastic. Laura Venecia Rodriguez has been practicing yoga since she was a teenager. In fact, she wrote a book about it 11 years ago. She said the practice of yoga has exploded over the past 25 years, yet some people don't want to take part in those exercises because of misconceptions regarding what yoga is all about. For example, many people believe they have to be super flexible in order to do yoga. They've seen photos and videos of people who've wrapped themselves into pretzels while doing those kind of exercises. That's why Laura practices what she calls a simple, gentle version of yoga that is much slower in motion and ideally suited to help people over 50 to remain more flexible as they get older. To tell us how the ancient practice of engaging mind, body, and spirit can help people over 50 in many ways, please welcome author and yoga practitioner Laura Venecia Rodriguez to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Laura. I really appreciate the time. You have been involved in yoga for most of your life and actually wrote a book about it. Tell us about your book and how that came about.
Last year, the second edition of the book, which is Gentle Yoga After 50, specifically, I updated it from the previous edition I wrote 11 years prior to target people over 50, because even though yoga has exploded over the past 25 years or so, a lot of people still don't know that much about it, even though it seems to be on every corner.
Right.
But there was a woman in my book club, we read the book, and she said she really didn't know much about yoga before she read it, which always surprises me, because you get blindfold. You think, oh, if you do yoga, you go to yoga classes, you see a lot of people with yoga mats, you think everyone knows about yoga.
Right.
But the reason I originally wrote the book was that I felt that, again, a lot of people don't know about yoga. They may have some misconceptions. And that especially one of them is that if you're not flexible, you can't do yoga. And the purpose of yoga is to help improve your flexibility. And that becomes especially important after age 50, 60, and beyond. Typically, I hear people say, oh, they're stiff when they wake up in the morning, etc. And so yoga is one way that you can offset that, counteract that. I think as the years go by, you do have to be more proactive. So my purpose in writing this book was to encourage people to start a yoga practice, a simple practice. I think the yoga poses I present, or hatha yoga, I think are the best for someone beginning yoga, especially after age 50, because they're slow motion. You can build up to them gradually.
Tell people what yoga is, if you don't mind. Just give them an idea.
Yoga, simply defined, and I'm not a yoga instructor. I've never been a yoga instructor. I've taken a few classes. I'm taking classes now as a participant. But over the years, since age 15, I've been doing yoga. And it's a body, mind, spiritual system that was developed in India, originates back in India over 5,000 years ago.
Wow.
And a lot of the poses were patterned after the movement of animals. That's why a lot of the poses are named after animals,
Really?
Whether it's downward facing dog or cat-cow pose or pigeon pose. So that's why there are it was based on that, on the movement and designed to awaken your body, mind, and spirit.
Your book is titled Gentle Yoga After 50. Is there a more advanced, not so gentle yoga?
There are all kinds of yoga. I lean toward doing yoga that's a gentle kind, the easier kind. You can go, that's why a lot of people are intimidated, because look in the magazines, etc. They'll show all these young people in these pretzel-like poses.
Exactly.
Extremely intimidating, and I could not do them. Although people, I will say one of my greatest inspirational teacher was a yoga instructor who I met 2012 and 2015. She died, say, 3 or 4 years ago at age 102, or almost 102. And she was apparently teaching yoga until 5 days before she died. Now, she could do some of those poses, but she had been taught, she learned in India, she learned how to do yoga in India. And she was just especially gifted in that area, whatever. Not everyone has the type of body that can go into certain poses. But the poses that I present in the book are ones I feel that most people can do, given. And so I thought I wanted to encourage people to do at least some of the simpler poses that maybe are not as visually impressive, but that can help energize you. I think that was one of the most important things to have, release the energy that's innate within all of us.
How does yoga make people feel fantastic? You had mentioned releasing energy. Is that, Are you talking about the stress that's built up into our system throughout the day?
Yes, I think one of the most important benefits of yoga is that because putting your body into positions that maybe you're not normally accustomed to, stretching in certain ways, that helps release tension and stiffness. And so by that, you're releasing stuck energy, and it can definitely energize you. I noticed that a lot after studying yoga. Even though I began yoga at age 15, and typically when you're 15, you're typically more energetic than you are later on. But still, at any age, I think you accumulate tension, stress, and that can, I feel, block your energy centers. So when you do yoga, it helps release, especially if you do it very mindfully and focus on what you're doing moment by moment. Definitely is a way to release.
I had never thought of that the tension would be, when you get rid of the tension in your body, you're actually releasing energy. And that makes perfect sense. So no wonder people who do yoga claim that they feel so good after they go through the routine. How long does a routine typically take?
For years, when I was in my federal job and I was taking care of my kids, I had to get them off to school in the morning, etc., I would do a 20 to 25-minute practice. And I did that for years, and I thought benefited very well from that. I didn't have time for classes that typically take 45 minutes to an hour. Some classes, our yoga instructor that I go to now, our classes are about 45 to 50 minutes. Okay. But she's taught classes up to 90 minutes. So It just depends on where you go and what the amount of time you have. But I do feel that you can benefit. In fact, my first book was Yoga at Home, Gain Energy, Flexibility, and Serenity in 20 to 30 minutes a day. That was the premise, because you can in just 20. You don't have to do an hour or 90 minutes. But consistency is important. It's better to do 10 or 15 minutes a day than 1 hour once a week, or 90 minutes once a week.
So you get into that routine of doing that, and it just helps your body to recover more from the stress that you put on it.
Right. And just to maintain good energy levels.
And you started yoga at 15. What prompted you to do that?
At the time when I was growing up, and even before age 15, as a child, I was 7, 8, 9, 10, I was really unathletic, much to my mother's chagrin, because she was definitely more athletic than I was at that time. And I noticed by 7th grade, middle school and high school, I wasn't selected for any teams, junior varsity or varsity. And those students who they were getting regular exercise, because they made the people on the teams go run laps, do whatever. And the sports instructors for the rest of the people really neglected us. They didn't make us do much of anything. And so I could tell I was going to, even though I was only 15, 14, et cetera, that I was not going to stay in shape later on if I didn't do something. And I always had, for some reason, I had an innate interest in health ever since I was really small, 5, 6 years old. So by the time I was 15, one day there was an article in Philadelphia magazine, because I grew up outside Philadelphia and my mother subscribed to that magazine, that had this yogi on the cover, and he was in a lotus position, a seated yoga position. I was intrigued by that. And for some reason, the article, I don't remember the details, but it just somehow encouraged me that even though I was unathletic, it was talking about the type of yoga that was slow motion and that a lot of people could do. So
okay,
I somehow then I found books because there were almost no classes at that time. This is 1970. So it was not like now where there are classes everywhere. And I think there was one PBS class by this woman named Lilius. She did a yoga class on PBS. But apart from that, there was nothing. So I had two books that I learned from. One was called Yoga for Beauty and Health, and the other was Yoga, Youth and Reincarnation by this journalist, Jess Stern, who wrote about Edgar Cayce and some other metaphysical topics. And he was able to recover from some auto accidents and residual pain because he learned yoga from an instructor. Those two books were very detailed in their instructions. And so I set up a daily routine that I learned from those books. And that's what I did for years. I've been doing for years.
Okay, so you just followed the instructions in a book without any classes.
Right, so I was self-taught, right.
Wow, that's impressive. And now you've been doing it now for a couple of decades.
Yeah, 5 decades.
5 decades. Wow.
Yeah.
What's the best form of yoga for people who are over 50?
I think it depends on, again, what your physical capacity has been. Some people have certain body structures that lend themselves to certain types of yoga more than others. But I would say for anyone beginning after age 50, if you've never done yoga, then I recommend the gentle hatha yoga, which is where you hold poses for set periods of time, as opposed to power yoga and flow yoga that requires you to move in motion, move fluidly, because that's more difficult to learn in the beginning. So I think start out slowly with slow motion, or especially hatha yoga, that you hold poses for set periods of time because you can build yourself up. I think it's really difficult because I learned in the past couple of years since I started taking classes that now I have more time. I had never injured myself because I followed what I did and what I advocate for in my book. But I one time, because I was in a class and the instructor moved us through quickly, something I jerked, and then I did pull a muscle. So I had trouble for a few weeks recovering from that. So I think that's why I always recommend the slow motion in the beginning.
I would agree. Does that mean that as people get older, like 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds, we slow down even more? So this kind of gentle yoga would be applicable at any age?
Yes. I know there are other types of yoga, even when people are 70s, 80s, and beyond, that's chair yoga. There are different poses you can do to start out very gradually. But I think for anyone starting any type of practice, no matter what your age is that you should start out gradually when you're learning something. Because if you jerk things around or try to pull, there have been a lot of people who have injured themselves with yoga because they tried to strain themselves into some particular pose. But the books that I learned from, they over and over again said that you have to, never push, never experience. If you experience pain, you're doing something wrong. And never push yourself, never strain. So that's why all those years on my own, I never had any injury.
I can sneeze and pull out my back. It's at this age. So that's neat to know that other people may have the same problem, but they can overcome that by getting into one of these yoga routines or developing that.
And starting very gradually and easing into it. That's what I say is baby steps. Always focus on taking baby steps.
How have you managed to maintain a yoga practice for over 50 years? Does that require just a daily commitment to it?
Yes. I remember years ago, I attended a number of Tony Robbins, inspirational, motivational speaker, some of his seminars, and also had some of his audios at the time. And he said one of his key philosophies was about the word decision. You decide to do something. That means you cut off any other option. When I was 25 or almost 25, I'd already been doing yoga, but I also added jogging at the time, aerobic exercise. But I decided with yoga too, because health was always important to me, it just became a priority. You decide, you make that commitment. So yes, it doesn't, especially in the first few months of starting any new habit, and I do think it's important to try to do it every single day or at least 5 times a week to get into the habit. And I suggest even starting 5 minutes a day just to get in the habit of doing it.
Right.
So for me, that's what's enabled me. One, health is a priority. And two, I just thought, oh, I have to do this. This is just, it's non-negotiable, basically. So, of course, there are periods of time. If I had the flu or when I was pregnant, later in pregnancy, I couldn't do certain poses. But barring those type of situations, it's just becomes non-negotiable. It's just a commitment.
If people are engaged in a yoga routine or practice, is that what it's called? Is a practice?
Yeah, yoga practice.
Okay. If they're doing that, do they need to have other exercises as well? Do they need to be going to the gym and using the weights and things like that?
I think, depending on what type of yoga you do, if you're doing power yoga and some of these rapidly moving types of yoga, you may not need to do aerobics per se, although I can't speak from personal experience with those, just from my understanding. But yoga is just one of the pillars of my lifestyle. I also, all those years as well, was doing some form of aerobics. I was jogging for many years, but I had problematic feet. So now I rebound the past 16, 17 years, rebound on the trampoline. So I think it's important, especially since most of the yoga I do is gentle yoga, slow motion, that yes, I feel there's a need to balance it with aerobics and also and strength training, which has been shown to be especially important as you get older. That is especially valuable because of physical changes, we lose muscle mass. So yes, yoga can help with that as well. But I think I do a combination of all those. I do. Although yoga I do more frequently than the strength training, which is twice a week. I do yoga 5 times a week.
Okay.
But I think you do need to have a balance of things. I mean, some people, but I'm not a specialist in any one of them. Some people argue like the rebounding itself is fine, that you don't need to do anything else. I don't know, but I like to have a mixture of physical movement.
That's probably a good idea. It prepares your body for anything that you might encounter. It sounds like yoga would be one pillar of a good, healthy lifestyle. And the other ones would be sleep, you said?
Sleep and nutrition. If there's lots of stuff on that, but I would say nutrient-dense eating, so that you're paying attention to the food you eat, that it's nutrient-dense, as opposed to junk food, a lot of processed foods. You want fresh, ideally organic if you can, depending, quality foods. I follow mainly a plant-based, although I'm basically pescatarian. I do eat some fish, but I haven't eaten meat or red meat or chicken for 20 years, or dairy. But it's paying attention to all those things. There's no single factor that's going to guarantee your health.
When it comes to nutrient-dense foods, basically you're shopping the walls of the grocery store, not the center aisles. Is that the best way to look at that?
Yeah, and not by the cashier.
The cashier, for sure, where the candy and all the good stuff is put. Yes. What are some of the key challenges people over 50 have in being able to shine in their body, mind, and spirit?
I think one key factor is their mindset. People just think after a certain age that, because if they observed in their parents, et cetera, or around them, they just make certain assumptions. Oh, I'm getting old. I mean, I had people say that they're 20 years younger than I am. Or they have friends who are saying that, and they just get into this whole mindset. That's a lot, and that's reinforced by the media and society and all that. So part of it's mindset. And then it's the other key part is your habits. You do have to, as the years go by, when you're 20, but I noticed this as early as 25, that people who weren't actively maintaining an exercise regimen and eating, they started gaining weight or whatever they started. So you have to be more, when you're a teenager, maybe you don't, but as years go by, you have to be more proactive to maintain your energy levels and to maintain your weight, things that you could get away with when you're 20. You can't do that when you're.
Exactly. All I have to do is look at food or smell it to actually add pounds to my body now. It's just crazy. And it takes forever to get it off. That must be something to do with the metabolism as we age. So it's better to control what goes in than try and figure out how to put the pounds off later.
I think that's, important too. It's just much easier to maintain. Because one thing, I haven't had a problem with my weight over the years. I'm the same weight I was in college. And I think it's basically because I've just always watched what I've eaten over the year and I would make adjustments. So if I went up by 5 pounds, then I would just adjust back. So it's much easier to lose 5 pounds than 20 pounds. So I would just watch what I was doing. So it comes down to mindset, habits, activity. I think movement, it's mindset, movement. And those are core factors, I believe, in maintaining youthful energy and vitality as the years go by.
You developed a platform after turning 50 called Shine After 50. Tell us about it. What is it about and how did you develop it?
It's a relatively new platform I've developed this past year. And part of it's with the Gentle Yoga After 50 book I developed that I published last year. And I do plan to, I have in the works, they're on the back burner. I'm bringing them back on the burner and the front burner shortly on rebounding on the trampoline after 50, because that's an excellent exercise as well. And also meditation after 50. It's a whole series, just the idea of, because again, as we said earlier, people start getting into this mindset after 50 because it's a half century. So that's often daunting when you turn 50.
Exactly.
Wow, half a century. And then often people, even though things may change in the future, but at least up until this point, once someone's 50 and beyond, often they're looking at fewer years ahead of them than behind them. And so we want to make sure that we optimize each day. Because, none of us ever know how long we have. But since typically most of us probably have fewer years ahead of us than behind us, we want to enjoy life to the max and continue shining. We don't want to just start going downhill and accepting that. We want to be vital with our children, grandchildren, etc. We want to remain vibrant and productive.
That's right. You had mentioned that for a lot of people, turning 50 is daunting because they realize that their life is half over. But it still means they have a lot of time and productive time ahead of them, doesn't it?
I feel like yes, I would say so. Again, we never know how much, but it's not now in the century ago, a lot of people didn't even live till 50. I forget what the average age was at the turn of 1900, but it was much lower, the life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have longer life expectancy now. So we do want to make the most of our lives and not start shutting down saying, oh, okay. Or even if you're retired, a lot of people don't know what they want to do when they're retired. I think this is a good time to pursue your passion or your true calling if you weren't able to do it before, or do it in a different way, but that still engages your mind and your heart.
I think when people look forward and in looking at their age, so for example, I'm 64. If I look forward and I say 10 years, I'm going to be 74, that's 10 years is such a short period of time. It's coming up so quick, etc. But when you look back to see everything I have done from age 54 to 64, there is a lot of life crammed into those 10 years. So it means that when we turn 50, life isn't over. There is plenty of life for us to do. Do you have any advice for people on how to identify or pursue their purpose or their passion after turning 50?
I think one of the key ways that I recommend to people, if they haven't already done it, for example, if you had a career, which I did in the federal government, I did do writing, which I like researching and writing. Those have always been passion. The particular topic wasn't necessarily my selected topic. And people do change. When I went to college, I studied political science and French, and then I went to grad school in international communications. I thought that was what I really was of interest. And then once you get out into the working world and you're doing something, then you realize, maybe this isn't. So you may change, but there were certain commonalities when I'm looking back, especially at childhood and teen years, of what animated your spirit. Whether I always liked speaking, recording, I had little cassette player and those audio cassettes when I was 12 and I had audio pen pals. I liked recording my voice. I liked doing that kind of thing. I always liked music. I liked writing. And I always pursued or read a lot of personal development books, even as a teenager. All of that was an interest, and as well as things we can't explain with the five senses. I was always interested in metaphysical and spiritual topics. So that's what I'm focusing on now, the body, mind, spirit, and health. So look back. If you feel like you got off track or you did some kind of career because you felt it was profitable, lucrative, but it wasn't your passion, look back for clues from what really speaks to your heart, from things that you really loved as a child. I think that's often a key way of figuring out what to do now, or if you're retired or just after 50.
That's great advice, Laura. I really appreciate that. What did you do before you turned 50? You've mentioned a couple of times that you worked for the federal government. What kind of job did you have?
Yes, I worked in the federal government for 27 years. So it was from, I worked in, and also in the private sector in Washington, D.C. Essentially, I was a writer, researcher, analyst. Most of that time was for the federal government in the area of international trade. Worked for a tiny federal agency that most people haven't heard of, the U.S. International Trade Commission, and we had about 350 people. Most of us were either economists or analysts that we churned out. We were like a think tank, a neutral, though, non-political, think tank for U.S. Congress and the U.S. trade rep. So we churned out a lot of reports on what impact certain trade policies would have on U.S. industries.
Okay.
So I liked my colleagues a lot. It's a highly respected agency. It just wasn't my passion. And then there's some things working in the federal government. There's certain constraints and all these bureaucratic rules that can get frustrating.
That's right. So you're officially retired now from the federal government?
Yes, I retired from the federal almost 4 years ago, the end of 2020.
Does the Shine After 50 platform, is that an online community for people?
Not yet. That's something I plan to build. And right now I have the website and a blog, a weekly blog that I post there, but I do plan to create a community around that too.
Okay. Focus
on different things that we can all do, whether it's exercise, mindset, etc., to have a vibrant lifestyle, to shine. One of the themes, the reason I came up with that, besides the half-century mark, is I always loved the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, Shining Star. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Something along the lyrics. That I always enjoyed that band since college and that song in particular, because I just like that image of the shining star being brilliant
right
in the night sky, standing out. So I think we all have some gift that can make us shine after 18, whatever in our lives, that can contribute to others and help make the world a better place.
Do you have any mottos or special sayings that keep you motivated throughout the day?
A couple of things. One, sort of Shakespeare, whatever, to thy own self be true. But another one, too, let all you do be done in love. That's always important to me. To operate from the heart and not just the head. And I think we need more of that in the current world situation. More people, operating from the heart. From the head.
I agree. It's life is lived through the heart, not the head. So, yeah. How can people connect with you if they'd like to follow you or to get more information about Shine After 50 or even get your book?
They can go to my website, Shine After 50. That's 50, although you can get it both ways, but 50.com. You can order the book from there, or you can go straight to Amazon. I also offer, there's a free audio download if you're going through a stressful situation. It's a type of visualization I created based on some training I've had and other practices I've learned. And also, if you're planning to start a yoga practice, there's a free PDF download of 10 steps to yoga success that you can find on the website. So that's the easiest way. And there's a contact form. You can send me a question, or I also offer a no obligation 30-minute lifestyle chat. If someone wants to share challenges they're having, they can click on the Calendly link and book a time.
That's nice. So if people wanted to get involved in yoga and they're still afraid that they might be too old to be doing that, they could contact you on your website and you could give them a little encouragement and point them in the right direction and even give them a PDF to get them started in that direction.
Yeah.
Super.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for your time today, Laura. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. It's been an honor to be here.
I enjoyed speaking with Laura Venecia Rodriguez about her more gentle approach to yoga. I'll admit I had a number of misconceptions about the practice and what it required of people. Laura described several different types of yoga, even exercises that can be practiced on a chair. The key thing to remember is that people can ease themselves into a daily yoga practice by taking baby steps. All it requires to get started in anything you want to do is to make a decision to do it. When it becomes a non-negotiable priority and you make time to do it, then the commitment becomes a habit. Although there is no single factor that will guarantee your health after 50, Laura said yoga exercises is just one pillar of a healthy lifestyle. The others are getting good sleep and eating nutrient-dense foods. Yet the biggest challenge holding seasoned citizens back from shining in their bodies, minds, and spirits is their mindset. After a certain age, people make assumptions that they are too old to do something, whether it is exercising or living a life of purpose and impact. Laura said establishing habits of mindset and movement are the core factors in maintaining youthful energy and vitality as the years go by. With people living much longer than they did 50 years ago, it is very important that we make the most of our lives. There's still plenty of time to pursue our passions and true calling, even if it's in a different way that still excites our mind and our heart. Laura is in the process of creating the Shine After 50 community to help people develop the right mindset and habits to engage their mind, body, and spirit. She will eventually launch a membership community, but right now, people can subscribe to her weekly blog to get tips on ways to live a more vibrant lifestyle after 50. She created a free audio download to help people over 50 to develop a good mindset, as well as a free PDF outlining 10 steps to developing a successful yoga practice. Laura is also willing to have a 30-minute chat with people to talk about specific challenges they may be experiencing. All that is available at www.shineafter50.com. Laura's book, Gentle Yoga After 50, is available on Amazon and at other bookstores. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.